We grow up dreaming of it, don't we? That perfect picture, the white dress, the cheers, the promise of forever. Marriage, we're told, is the ultimate fulfillment, the anchor in life's stormy seas, the beginning of true happiness. For many, it truly is. A partnership built on love, respect, and shared dreams. A sanctuary where two souls find profound connection and grow stronger, together. But beneath that gleaming surface, a quiet, unspoken fear sometimes whispers. A fear of losing oneself, of becoming a diminished version of the person you once were. What if for some men this sacred bond, meant to uplift and complete, instead becomes a gradual erosion, a slow unravelling of the very fabric of who they are? What if the institution designed to build a life inadvertently begins to dismantle his own? This isn't a story of blame or of condemnation for one of life's most profound commitments. It is an empathetic exploration, an honest look at the complex, often unseen ways a marriage, when it falters in certain areas, can truly, profoundly alter a man's life for the worse. It's about understanding the shadows that can fall, even in the brightest of unions, and acknowledging the deeply human struggles that can emerge when love isn't enough, or when it's misdirected. Marriage, in its ideal form, is meant to be a doubling of joy, a halving of sorrow. But what if instead it becomes a crucible that reshapes a man into someone he doesn't recognize, someone he never intended to be? Let's delve into 7 ways this transformation, this quiet undoing, can unfold, not to instill fear, but to foster deeper understanding and perhaps encourage more conscious, compassionate partnerships. The first and perhaps most insidious way marriage can quietly dismantle a man is through the erosion of his identity, the slow fading of his authentic self. Imagine a man, vibrant and distinct, full of quirks and passions. He dives headfirst into new experiences. His evenings are a canvas for hobbies, his weekends reserved for cherished friends and independent pursuits. Then he marries. Slowly, subtly, the edges begin to blur. My becomes ours. His unique interests are gently, then not so gently, nudged aside for shared activities, for domestic harmony. His friends, once a constant, fade into distant memories as couple-centric social circles take precedence, or because his partner disapproves of them. He stops writing that novel, postpones that solo trip, lets go of the gym routine that grounded him. It's not an overnight surrender, but a gradual absorption, a slow dissolution of the individual into the collective. He looks in the mirror one day and sees a stranger, a man who exists purely as a husband, a father, a provider, but no longer truly himself. The self he once knew, the man who laughed loudest at his own jokes and pursued his own eccentric joys, has been archived, folded away in the linen closet of matrimony, replaced by a version he barely recognizes. This isn't about healthy compromise, which is vital, but about an extinction of the self, leaving an echo where a vibrant soul once stood, wondering where he went. And this fading of self often has a ripple effect, leading us to another profound challenge, the stifling of his personal dreams and ambitions. Every man, deep down, carries a spark of aspiration, a unique vision for what he wants to achieve, whether it's climbing a corporate ladder, starting a business, mastering a craft, or traveling the world. These are not always grand, world-changing goals. Sometimes they are quiet, personal quests for meaning and fulfillment. But within the confines of a marriage where these aspirations aren't equally valued, or worse, are actively dismissed, that spark can dwindle. He might hear, "That's impractical. We don't have time for that." Or, "What about our plans?" His desire to go back to school might be seen as a drain on resources, his passion project as a distraction from household duties, his yearning for adventure as irresponsible. Over years, he learns to silence that inner voice, to pack away his dreams in the attic of his mind. He becomes adept at rationalizing why he can't pursue them, blaming circumstances. But deep down, a profound regret takes root. He may achieve stability, provide for his family, and fulfill all the societal expectations of a good husband, yet carry an aching sense of unlived potential, a heavy heart for the roads not taken. The man he could have been had his deepest aspirations been nurtured, not neglected. This erosion of self and dreams can often pave the way for a deeper, more insidious wound: emotional isolation within the marriage itself. This isn't about being physically alone. It's about the profound loneliness that can settle in when you share a bed, a home, a life, but feel utterly misunderstood, unheard, or unsupported. He may find himself walking on eggshells, editing his thoughts and feelings to avoid conflict, or retreating into silence because every attempt to express vulnerability is met with dismissal, criticism, or an immediate shift of focus to his partner's needs. The emotional intimacy, the deep, soul-bearing connection that once drew them together, slowly dissipates, replaced by a polite, functional coexistence. He stops sharing his anxieties, his quiet triumphs, his deepest fears, because the space for genuine connection has closed. He might feel like a performance artist in his own home, constantly playing a role never truly seen. This isolation isn't visible from the outside. Neighbors might see a perfectly content couple, but inside he carries a heavy burden, a quiet scream for understanding that never finds an echo, leading to a crushing sense of solitude, a feeling of being utterly alone in the most intimate relationship of his life. This emotional void often intersects with another significant area of vulnerability for men: financial entrapment and the burden of sole provision. While partnership implies shared responsibility, cultural norms and relationship dynamics can sometimes place an overwhelming and often unspoken pressure on the man to be the primary, if not sole, financial provider. This isn't just about paying bills. It's about the psychological weight of feeling entirely responsible for another person's well-being, for the entire household's stability, often without true partnership in financial decisions or a shared vision for the future. He may work in a job he despises, sacrificing his health and happiness simply because he has to. His income might be absorbed entirely by household expenses, leaving him with no personal disposable income, no financial agency, and no resources to pursue his own interests or mitigate his own stress. The fear of failure, the fear of not providing enough, becomes a constant, gnawing anxiety. Divorce in this context becomes an almost unthinkable prospect due to the potential financial ruin it could bring, leaving him feeling trapped, beholden, and stripped of his economic autonomy. He might see his life savings, his hard-earned assets, or even his future earning potential tied up in a way that feels more like an obligation than a shared journey, leading to deep resentment and a profound sense of powerlessness over his own destiny. Beyond the financial, there's a subtle but powerful loss in some marriages: the erosion of his freedom and autonomy. Marriage, by definition, involves a merging of lives, a giving up of certain individual liberties for the sake of the union. But there's a critical difference between mutual compromise and one-sided control. In some dynamics, a man can gradually lose his sense of personal agency, feeling that every decision, no matter how small, from how he spends his free time, to what he buys, to who he sees, requires approval, or is met with scrutiny. This isn't about healthy discussion or shared decision-making. It's about a constant need for permission, a feeling of being under surveillance or having his choices second-guessed and undermined. His once unfettered ability to make spontaneous plans, to pursue an interest on a whim, or simply to enjoy quiet solitude without justification, slowly disappears. He might find himself lying about small things just to avoid conflict, or simply giving up on asserting his needs. Over time, this constant constriction, this feeling of being micromanaged or controlled, suffocates his spirit. He becomes hesitant, less confident in his own judgment, and develops a deep-seated resentment for the invisible chains that bind him, yearning for the simple liberty of choosing his own path without explanation or argument. The profound stress and unhappiness stemming from these preceding points often manifest in the sixth way marriage can ruin a man: a significant decline in his physical and mental health. The constant emotional isolation, the weight of unfulfilled dreams, the financial burdens, and the erosion of autonomy do not simply exist in a vacuum. They take a tremendous toll on the body and mind. Chronic stress can lead to a myriad of physical ailments: digestive issues, high blood pressure, sleep disturbances, headaches, and a general feeling of exhaustion. Mentally, the impact can be even more devastating. He might slip into depression, characterized by a persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities he once loved, and a profound sense of hopelessness. Anxiety might become his constant companion, manifesting as worry, irritability, and a feeling of being perpetually on edge. He might turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, excessive drinking, overeating, or withdrawal, further exacerbating his problems. The very person meant to be his strongest advocate and source of comfort becomes, perhaps unintentionally, the primary source of his pain, leading him to neglect his own well-being, to suffer in silence, and to watch his vitality slowly ebb away under the relentless pressure of an unfulfilling union. Finally, and perhaps most tragically, a struggling marriage can lead to the sacrifice of other meaningful relationships, leaving a man utterly isolated. His once close friendships, which provided camaraderie, support, and a safe space for his authentic self, might wither away. This could be due to his partner's disapproval of his friends, her demands on his time, or his own increasing reluctance to expose the cracks in his marriage to outsiders. He might pull away from family members, either because of marital conflict or because he's too ashamed or exhausted to maintain those bonds. He may no longer feel comfortable being truly himself around his friends, constantly censoring his conversations or refusing invitations because of his marital constraints. The support network that once buttressed him, that offered perspective and respite, slowly erodes, leaving him with only his partner, who may be the source of his unhappiness, and an increasingly desolate social landscape. When the marriage falters, he finds himself adrift, without the external anchors that once provided balance and resilience, truly alone to face the consequences of a union that was meant to double his joys, but instead diminished his world. These are not easy truths, nor are they universal experiences. Marriage in its purest form can be a magnificent journey of growth, love, and shared purpose. But when the foundations are weak, when communication falters, when individual needs are consistently neglected, or when power dynamics become imbalanced, it can transform from a source of strength into a silent, profound undoing. This exploration is not about condemning marriage, but about advocating for conscious partnership, for self-awareness, for honest communication, and for the unwavering commitment to honoring not just the us, but the me within the we. It's a call to recognize the subtle ways we can lose ourselves, so that we might instead find a way to truly, beautifully build lives that elevate all within them.